Young people are hearing stuff on social media. What they're not hearing is the other side of it. Don't just get wrapped up into, oh, everybody on social media is saying buy a house, or everybody I follow is buying a house to arbitrage it or to do whatever with it and rent it out. No, it's all going to be glorious. Well, you can't just listen to people blowing smoke up your skirt. You also have to have the reality of that and punch your numbers and understand your numbers and all that stuff. My advice would be to get a realtor that understands the income potential of a property, or a realtor that actually invests themselves, not just a realtor that's selling a home, because there's a difference there. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you very much for being here. Today, we've got Tarisa back outside of the studio. So this is exciting. We haven't gotten to do a podcast together in a while.
I know. I'm excited. It feels good. What a good way to start the year off.
Yeah. All right. Today, we're going to talk about something not necessarily infinite banking related, but I'm talking to a few clients that are young, that are trying to get houses. And we've got some FYI mortgage advice so that you don't get stuck with a mortgage or a loan mortgage you may not understand. Well, I guess a loan mortgage is the same thing. Oh my gosh. It's Monday morning, people.
Mary Jo and I both needed some additional go-go juice today.
Yeah.
So
we are both on our second cup of coffee. So I had two potential clients that were in their 20s, and they were both ready to go buy a home, and they didn't have any money. And I said, so what are you going to do? Where's your down payment? They're like, oh, well, I don't need any down payment. And the one of them said, well, the bank actually just called me before I talked to you and said that I've been approved. And I said, for what? How does the loan work? Do you understand how those loans work? And so you and I talked about it, and you actually had one of these loans.
I did, yes. So it's down payment assistance, but I didn't fully understand this at the time. Is that
keyword assistance? I don't mean to cut you off, but keyword assistance.
Keyword assistance. Yes, I was assisted. I think I only paid $2,000 to $3,000 in total to get into my home, but I may not have fully understood to the extent of what I was doing at the time. But I did have savings, but I was using those savings to start my business. But essentially,
but we got people without savings over here.
Yes.
So let's forget about
that.
Tarissa's savings. Let's not talk about her savings, because most people don't have savings. And if they do, it's just $1,000 or $2,000.
Well, and I would say that that's definitely a good thing to have if you're thinking about purchasing a home, because a lot of people don't think about housing repairs. Even if you're purchasing a home warranty, that could be $500 to $1,000 for the year, and that doesn't count the service fees that you have or when you have someone come to your house, which are usually $65, $75. I didn't fully understand, how that program worked at the time. I don't think I would have done anything differently still knowing, but it is good to know this information because it might help you make different decisions. So it's essentially recorded as a second lien against your property that usually gets forgiven over time. So there's different down payment assistance programs. Some of them you have to make monthly installment plans on them in addition to your mortgage. And then some are payment free, and then they're forgiven after, I think mine was forgiven after 3 years total. And I actually ended up selling my house within, I think, 2 years of owning it. So I had to pay back that additional, I think it was $3,000 at the time, which we were kind of having this conversation. I think it's good for people to know. You're well, that was a different environment. So can you walk people through why that makes a difference in this kind of mortgage environment versus in 2019 when things were really great and equity was kind of through the roof?
Well, I want to break it down even further though, because people don't even understand what that assistance piece is. So if I'm in $100,000, if I'm going to buy let's just use round numbers. If I'm going to buy $100,000 house, typically for a traditional mortgage, you need 20% down. So that means you're coming up with $20,000. Okay. If you're going to get into one of these loans where you don't need any money down, and they don't tell you it's an assistant program. You just don't need any money down, Tarisa. Let me get you in a house. And so you put your $2,000 down or you put nothing down. What's happening is the assistant part is they are lending you the $20,000. And if you sell before 5 years, you have to pay that all back. Okay. So, like you were saying, it's like a second lien and it's a separate payment. Is that what you're saying? Some of those are
Some of
separate.
them are separate payments. It depends on like
Okay.
what type of program you use. For
Okay.
mine, I didn't have a separate payment. It just was forgiven. A certain portion was forgiven every single month I lived in the home.
Okay. So, my son had one of these. So, he just made his regular payment. He wasn't in his home 5 years either. So now all of a sudden you don't have that much equity because whatever the equity is minus what you owe them. So let's say that you're only $10,000 into paying them off. So now you sell your home and they're going to take 10,000 of that equity to get themselves paid off. They lent you that 20%. So the two people that I talked to knew that they were not staying where they're at for 5 years. And why are we buying a home? If you're
Right.
not going to have that mortgage, why are we buying a home?
Well,
And then
especially
that led to the conversation that you and I had about this isn't 10 years ago. This isn't
Mhm.
5 years ago when interest rates were 2% and the housing was just going crazy. I feel like we've come stagnant. Like it's either stagnant or it's kind of just holding its own. Maybe we have a little bit, but if we're in a rural area, now all of a sudden, who's living there? Nobody. So now our housing market is not going like this.
Yes.
Or maybe we are in a place like you and we're in Phoenix area, let's say. And so we're in Phoenix and maybe the housing market, is the housing market doing this in Phoenix or is it just slowly creeping?
Not anymore. It's actually, as we all know, love looking at real estate. Like I go on Redfin just for fun, just to see what the housing prices are. And there was actually a house across the street from ours that was on the market for like forever. And I was like, they have this price way too high. And they ended up dropping it. And this is because I'm nosy, but I looked up what they paid for it. And they had to actually drop it below what they purchased it for just to get out of their mortgage. And I think to your point, it's really good for people to think about if they want to stay somewhere for a certain amount of time, because it is actually cheaper to rent than it is to buy. So unless you're like house hacking or you're getting like a duplex or finding some way to kind of mitigate your monthly expenses, it might make more sense to rent if you don't see yourself there long term, especially if you're in a situation where you don't have savings or the
But here's the thing, if you don't have savings, when you go to sell the house, if you're selling it for the same as what you purchased it, you don't have the equity to pay them back on this loan.
well, you lose
So
money
in order
because you
to
have
get
like the
out, but in order to get out of it, you're going to have to pay them.
yep.
So you're not going from a house and you're not going up.
Yes.
You're actually either going to go level or you're going to go down. If the market in your area is not going up, those loans maybe worked way back when, but if they continue to give these loans to people that don't understand they're being assisted, I didn't know that was the word. They don't know that they're actually lending them the money
yeah.
because on top of that, you're also paying PMI. So you have mortgage insurance that because you don't have 20% equity in your home, the lender says you're giving us a monthly amount. That's to us. It doesn't go to your principal. It doesn't go to your loan. It just goes to them as insurance that you're going to be good for that or that they can basically take the house. Like, I don't really know how it works on the end. Ask your mortgage lender. But at the end of the day, you have to pay PMI. And that's just in addition to your principal and interest payment.
Hmm.
So you're going to pay principal and interest, and then it could be another $250 a month just for PMI. That is gone. That's like paying lot rent in a trailer park. Okay. $250 a month. It's like paying rent in an apartment building. $250 a month gone to the lender. Now, some of those loans, I do know as soon as your house you reach the 20% equity, the PMI drops off. Some of them are for life of the
Yeah.
loan.
That's
So
good. So if you
you
have a
really have
conventional
to
loan,
pay attention to like an FHA loan years ago, I was told the PMI never drops off. It goes
Yeah.
for 40 years. And the only way to get it to drop off is to refinance that house. And then you have to have another appraisal. You have to have closing costs. You have to have all these things that go along, administration fees, whatever. You have to have all these things that go along with it. Not closing costs, probably, but administration fees. So
Yeah,
you
closing
really have
costs.
to do your due diligence and education. We are not mortgage experts, like by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
But you know what? The socials are full of them. There is one lady that I follow on social media. I don't know what her name is off the top of my head. She's on TikTok. She has really long brown hair. And she is constantly talking about mortgages and she does lending. And just make sure that you find somebody that truly explains this to you. Because if they're not, then leave. It's
Right.
like buying life insurance. If they're not going to show you exactly how it works, then go find somebody that will. But you're in this thing, like they're lending you money to buy a home that's not going to appreciate because you want a home. That's silly. You're better off renting in that
Because you want
scenario.
home ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good point, especially because it's like I would say the pitfalls of that situation, your payment is going to be higher than it would be comparatively if you're renting, especially if you don't see yourselves in there for 5 years or more. I would say if you did, maybe it makes sense, but if you don't, then I don't know. And not to mention, a lot of people don't like I didn't understand that it was recorded as a second loan against my property. Nothing is free, and I think people sometimes make the mistake of thinking like, "Oh, this is a really good deal." And I was like, "Okay, well, how is it a good deal for the other person?"
Mhm.
You know? And because of the real estate environment that we're in right now, things are kind of stagnant or still. It's not like when I purchased my first home in 2019 and it was a new build, so I wasn't super worried about a lot of housing repairs, but a lot of people are in that same situation. Like if you're purchasing an older home, yeah, there's going to be things that pop up. So I think it's really good for especially young people to ask those questions because I think we're so incentivized by the American dream of home ownership. And although I don't disagree with that dream, I think it is worthwhile. How you do it is important. Thinking about it long term, just like any real financial decision, you should think about it long term and what you want to get out of it for yourself so that you don't put yourself in a situation where you're like, oh, dang, like I purchased this property, I need to sell it, but I didn't account for the agent commissions and I'm going to have to pay out the closing costs. I didn't account for the fact that my home didn't appreciate as fast as it has been over the past couple of years. So now I'm going to have to be like my neighbors across the street and pay out money out of pocket to even get out of that house. Because if rent's cheaper than the mortgage payment, yeah, you're going to have a hard time renting that out. So just thinking about those things long term, I think is really good. And I wish that I had listened to a podcast like this before I was like, oh, this is a great day. And it was for me, but it was because of the real estate environment. I just got lucky, I guess is probably the better way to put it. And unfortunately, a lot of people, if you're signing up for these loans in this current real estate environment, I don't know if it's going to work out as well for you. And it's really good to ask yourself those questions to make sure you're not putting yourself in a situation where you're going to have to owe money when you sell. You have a higher mortgage payment. You don't have the savings for any house repairs. Like that's going to put you further behind than someone who's renting and saving money, honestly.
Well, if you don't have any money for a down payment, like both the people that I talked to, neither one of them had more than $2,000. And so you don't have more than $2,000. What happens if the fridge goes out? Or what happens if your furnace goes out? Or your AC unit? Or anything, dishwasher? Like, there's a lot of appliances.
There
There's a lot
are.
of stuff that can go wrong. Okay.
Hmm.
And now all of a sudden you're sticking that on a credit card and your house isn't appreciating. It really can be a recipe for disaster. And so, my solution, because we can sit here and talk about all the problems, but I look at it and, like I told both of my potential clients, I'm like, the solution is figure out how to save money. Are you buying a vehicle that's more expensive? And both of mine happen to be blue collar guys. So I'm like, are you doing custom rims and tires and exhaust and all the rednecky things that they're awesome. Hey, I love them, but are they necessary if we want a house?
Hmm.
What can we give up? Or do we need to tighten our bootstraps? Like the one I asked, I said, so where's all your money going? Because he was still living at home.
Oh,
And I said, so where's all
nice.
your money going? I said, is it beer? Is it your vehicle? Like, and he's like, well, gas station. He's like, I live on gas station food because he traveled a lot,
Oh,
And I
no.
said, yeah, let's hit the grocery store for some bread, mayo, and some lunch meat. Like,
Sandwich on the go.
yeah, gas station food is super expensive. Go buy some pop or whatever it is, Walmart in a 12 pack. And like, it may sound crazy, but let's cut our expenses or let's watch our money so that when it does come time to get into a house, we have a little bit of equity in there, or at least we have some. If you're going to do that mortgage, great. If you're going to be there 5 years, fantastic. If you're going to be there 15 years, great. Do the mortgage, but at least still have some money
Mhm.
so that you have the ability to fix something if it's wrong. Or like you said, do some house hacking and have some buddies move in or have some girlfriends move in or whatever and charge them rent. There's
Yeah,
ways to do it, but
there are.
you gotta be smart about it. And you really, truly need to understand it's almost like a predatory loan, if you ask me. When my son did his loan, I said, do not go to that loan officer. You go to this person because I know her, I like her, she's honest. Well, he didn't listen because why would he? And so he went to the other person. And guess who I found out all this information from? The person I told him to go to. She's the one that said, oh, this is the kind of loan they gave him. And when he went to sell his house, I said, did you know this? Well, he had no idea till I told him. Then they had to call the bank and check into it. And it worked great and it was fantastic. And it got him in a house and their house appreciated. So he was okay. But again, he sold right at the cusp of everything, just high interest rates and everything kind of just hitting the wall. Like maybe you could buy now and interest rates go down and you're good, but I don't foresee that happening. I don't foresee interest rates coming down, at least not probably in the next 4 years. We know economically, all the people that you and I listen to, we know that interest rates should stay at that about 5% for inflation to kind of stay where it needs to be. And we still have inflation at 6 and 7% interest. So we can't bring it down to 5 because we would still have more inflation than we need. So they're not going to do anything until it really gets under control. Also, I don't know if you knew this. I just learned this the other day that I don't know when this happened. There was some change. I don't even remember what it's called. There was some change that when the feds change their interest rate, it now does not directly affect the mortgage interest. The banks get to decide on their mortgage interest and if they lower it or raise it.
Oh, interesting. When did that pass? Recently?
It was like maybe 2 years ago or something. I would have to Google it to see, but I don't follow interest rates on mortgages that much. So I just thought, well, isn't that interesting? And then because before it was directly, if the Fed lowered it, it automatically got lowered with everybody else. Well, now the banks have the ability to play games
Right, they're just gonna
because they
decide
can
their
get money
spread
cheaper, but
on
then
what
they can increase their spread.
they're always putting themselves in a position of control. Yeah, yeah. I think to
The
circle back
business.
to yeah, they know what they're doing, and I like all the pointers that you lay out for people so that they can consider if it's the right type of loan product for them. And I will say if you can either mitigate your expense for housing or cash flow or whatever, like I was thinking back to when I went into that loan, I think at the time I was paying like $500 a month for rent, which is like nothing these days. And so when I got into that home loan, I was also house hacking because I was renting a room to my brother. And then I was also living with my boyfriend at the time, who is now my husband, but he was paying me rent. And my monthly rent payment, or I guess mortgage payment at that time, for me was the same. So it wasn't like I was getting into this payment of like, oh, I want to be a homeowner, but also I'm going to quadruple or triple what I'm paying monthly for housing. It was like
It was a level trade.
yeah, exactly. So if that's like a helpful framework for people to think about it, it's like if it doesn't make financial sense, then don't do it. And I would
Yeah.
say that goes for everything.
Yeah. Yep. And some of those loans, but here's something else to know, is some of those loans don't allow you to house hack and rent out rooms.
Oh,
So if
really?
they were to find out that you were renting something out, that's not gonna be okay either.
Ah,
So you really need to make sure that you know what all the rules are. Now, I suppose if you're renting to your brother and you don't create an LLC for that and whatever, you're probably okay. They're not gonna find out. But you should probably know all your rules before
yeah,
you go in.
that's a good point. I mean, that was like young 20s Tarissa, so she was a little
Right.
dumber than the version you're getting today.
What other thing here's the other thing that I find, and you guys probably don't have so much of that problem because you don't have grass down there. But here, when you buy a house, you need a lawnmower and you need sprinklers and you need hoses and you need things to take care of that property. You're going to need to have buy light bulbs and you're going to need batteries for things. And all of those things add up and they're in a budget that you never had before. And
Mhm.
we find that Scott and I have found that, like, when we moved from town to 2 acres, oh my god, all of a sudden we needed a tractor and we needed a snowblower, and then we needed a different kind of snowblower because it was too hard to use the manual one, and then because we started with a blade and that didn't push snow, then you needed a snowblower, and then when we moved to 40 acres, we needed a bigger tractor. And then you got your side by sides and all, not that you need those, but we got one. So, all these extra things that you add as your property gets bigger. When you're in an apartment, you literally need batteries for your remote. You don't have to worry about, you technically don't have to worry about a light bulb in the fridge, a light bulb in the stove. Like minor things like that, you could be like, "Hey, the light bulb went out," and they would have to provide you a new light bulb. Now, you would be a horrible tenant if you did that. Okay, let me just clarify. Like nobody would want you as
Don't
a
be
tenant.
that person.
Yeah, I fixed everything in my apartment when it went wrong because I just didn't want to have to wait for anybody. But still, you have these other things that you would have not anticipated having. So, yes, it's great, it's yours, but you're also paying a lot of interest because you're not paying interest on 80% of that mortgage. You're paying interest on 100 plus PMI. So, make sure you're smart about it. Make
Yeah.
sure you go this morning when I was eating my breakfast, I was on TikTok and there was a guy doing a TikTok live about credit cards and which is the best one and points and all the things. And I was like, man, this is super beneficial information. And so those people are out there that you can ask questions of. They have like free material on their website. Just be super due diligent about making a smart decision and not just listening to somebody in your family that says, "Oh, you should buy a house." Hmm. If they don't know the housing market and they don't know mortgages, probably not the person to be listened to.
Absolutely. I think honestly, just taking like a long term view of what you're wanting to do usually helps mitigate a lot of decisions that are made with more short term thinking. What is it, the statistic that people don't even stay in their house? I think it's less than 10 years, or is it
Yeah,
7?
but is it like every 5 or 7
Yeah,
they move?
people move every 5 or 7 years. And that's another thing I wanted to bring up actually is that when you think about like your mortgage payment, the most amount of money is going to the interest portion. So it's like if you don't have any equity in that property and you're making your payments every single month, I mean, it could be like a year later and maybe you've paid less than $5,000 towards the principal. So again, the bank is in control. They're going to make their money up front. So those 5 to 7 years are very lucrative for them, not so much for you, especially if
You
you're not.
truly you truly aren't building equity.
Well, exactly. And that's my point is like if you're not in an appreciating environment, your loan pay down is going down so slowly that it really does make it hard to make a profit unless you're in like a crazy area where a lot of growth is happening and like it is appreciating like that. But like we said, most of the real estate market is pretty slow right now because interest rates are so high. So just don't put yourself in a position where you're over leveraged or you can't afford the payment or it doesn't make financial sense. And like ask yourself, your 5 year older self, does this still make sense? You know, am I still
Mhm.
glad that I made this decision? So I think it's a really good podcast to listen to, especially as a young person, because it's like the average age for the homeowner now is like what, 40 for a first time homeowner. So not that we're
I have a
discouraging you
lot of
from.
thoughts about that too, but
Yeah,
not for this
for
podcast.
another for another podcast maybe. Yeah. Yeah, I think the question is how do we make sure that that's not you? But and it's admirable, right, to like be focusing on these things that allow you to add to your hard assets. I wouldn't discourage that thinking, but I think how that happens is important and you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're stuck.
Which is what a lot of young people are hearing stuff on social media. And so what they're not hearing is the other side of it.
Mhm.
And so don't just get wrapped up into, oh, everybody on social media is saying buy a house, or everybody I follow is buying a house to arbitrage it or to do whatever with it and rent it out. No, it's all going to be glorious. Well, you can't just listen to people blowing smoke up your skirt. You also have to like have the reality of that and punch your numbers and understand your numbers and all that stuff. And my advice would be to get a realtor that understands like maybe the income potential of a property, or a realtor that actually invests themselves, not just a realtor that's selling a home, because there's a difference there. And your realtor, I get they're not supposed to give financial advice, but they have seen things. Okay. And a realtor that's maybe been in the business for a long period of time, not somebody that just got in when interest rates were low and they sold all these houses and they don't know what to expect. And if that realtor is new, how long have they been watching real estate? So I think that you should probably be interviewing realtors as well, and
Mhm.
not just taking the first realtor that comes up, because they may just be pushing you into something and also not informing you of everything that you should be looking for. And I just did a podcast on, I don't know when it's going to air, the Farming Without the Bank podcast. I just talked about the misery of our condo sale and the entitlement mentality and how awful that was. And so, if you guys want more information on how not to be a crappy buyer, go over there and listen to that. Um, but yeah, I think that picking the right people and doing your due diligence and just stop taking everybody's word for everything. Like,
Yeah.
even look up all the stuff that we talked about. The more information that we give you, and if you just trust us, that's great. Because I know we're trustworthy people, but not everybody is. And eventually you get caught with your pants down and you're like, oh, that was somebody else's fault. They pulled them down. No, you didn't even watch to see who was around you. Okay. Like, you got to pay attention.
You have to watch your own back. And to your
Yes.
point, I think some good questions to ask in addition to making sure you have a good real estate agent is look at it as an investor would look at it. What are the average days on market for a house to sell? So that if you did want to sell it, you would be like, okay, well, I know I would have to keep this for 3 months minimum. Average days on market, what's the average rental rate to see what at cash flow if I decided to move out? Like, I wish I had asked these questions before purchasing property just in general as like my primary residence. So those are some helpful things to also look at in addition to making sure your real estate agent knows what they're talking about.
And don't buy a house to save your marriage. For the love of Pete. Like,
Who's doing that?
oh, I hear that all the time. Like,
Oh
oh,
no.
somebody's not happy because they want a bigger property. Well, when you get to the new property, that doesn't mean your marriage isn't going to end. And now you have no equity and you didn't put a down payment down and you have to sell. So you probably have to pay money out of pocket to do that, because eventually that's not going to make a difference, right?
Oh no.
Um, I know
That's
a couple
terrible
here
advice.
locally that built a house and then they were stuck in their marriage because they built the house together. Well, a lot of other things happen in the meantime. But the moral of the story is, if you're not going to be there and things aren't going well now, a lot of houses have to sell and you're going to take a loss on them because of a divorce. Like, if I buy a property, I'm as nosy as you are. So if I buy a property, I'm Googling, man. I want to
Yeah.
know,
Who are
like,
your
what's
neighbors?
happening with those people. Are we in a divorce? Because if it's a divorce situation, then I know that they're going to have to sell. And if it's already been on the market 3 months, I can already say too, well, they've probably had some smaller offers, but one of them's being difficult and the other one wants to leave. I may not even want to be in that purchase because I don't need to be in their drama. And there's going to be drama in that situation. So, like your neighbors, I'm not saying they got divorced, but if they were in a divorce situation, Now, all of a sudden, they just can't stand each other to the point where they're going to just pay to get out so they don't have to live together anymore.
Mhm. Yeah.
Just be smart about it.
Well, especially because a mortgage is 30 years. I mean, a kid is 18. So if you think about that math,
Yeah.
that's like double a child. Definitely want to think twice about that.
You can't just give either one away.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any final thoughts on anything?
No, I think this is really good. I think have a list of questions that you want to ask other people to make sure you're doing your due diligence and make sure it's a sound financial decision for you.
Okay.
So,
That's all I got. You guys know the routine. Email Tarisa or myself at withoutthebank.com. You can go to withoutthebank.com, grab your book, get your education, schedule an appointment with us so that we can help you, and we'll go from there. You guys have a fantastic rest of your day.